Welcome to a special edition of 100 Huntley Street on the road from Alberta. Today we visit the town of Ponoka to take in the action from the 88th edition of the Ponoka Stampede, one of the top 10 rodeos in the world. We also visit with Daniel and Christina Im to hear all about their love story and what makes strong marriages the bedrock of Canadian family life.
How can you come together and actually use conflict and learn the ability to have conflict in a way that you understand when your spouse is hurting, I stop and I listen.
That's all coming up right now. Welcome to 100 Huntley Street on the road in Alberta. We made it, Daniel!
Yes!
Woo!
Thank you for coming to Alberta.
Thank you for having us.
It's so good to be together with you.
We are so happy to be here, and
Yes.
we're thrilled to be at the Ponoka Stampede.
Yes,
Wow.
there are so many events that, this is going to be a fantastic day.
Daniel, you're the pastor of Beulah Alliance Church. You live in Edmonton. You're an Albertan, but is this your first rodeo?
This isn't my first... Actually, it is my first rodeo.
It is. Okay, I'm not alone. I love it.
But you know what? I'm
it.
excited to experience it with you
Yes.
and with our Huntley fam. So
That's right.
It's going to be a great day.
Oh, it's going to be so good. I love it. Now, what are you most excited to see?
Okay, we were looking through the entire event list.
We have some ideas.
And if I could only choose one, it'd be the bull riding.
Oh, the bull riding.
These individuals getting on, really risking their life in a sense.
They are.
With the danger of it.
Well, how much do those bulls weigh? 1,500, 2,000 pounds?
Something like that. I mean, they are
So one
huge.
step of a bull.
Yes.
And, okay, we got to be praying on the side.
Yeah.
That's what you can be doing with that.
But all the lessons that we were,
Yeah.
that you're going to see with the courage and the strength and the
Yes.
training and the resilience
Yeah.
of these cowboys and cowgirls.
Yeah, when they fall down, they get back up.
Yeah,
that's a
that's
good
right.
lesson.
That's right.
Well, I'm so excited to see the barrel races and
Yes.
some of the cowgirls that are going to be
Yes.
riding in those races.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, and the speed in which they're going to be going.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. I can't even take it.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm seeing in Alberta is just this incredible spirit that Albertans have, Daniel. There's so much grit and fortitude and innovation, self-realization, and a strong faith in God for so many people here.
Yeah, it is so unique. Sometimes we think that, Canada, we're all the same. Province to province, sea to sea, but having lived in BC, Ontario, Quebec, and Alberta, I'm not going to say that Alberta is my favorite province, but I think everyone knows it is.
Read between the lines. Between the lines.
But I say that because every province has so many beautiful things and characteristics and strengths. And Alberta, talking about Alberta, the strength of courage and character. And we've got it all week, right?
Yeah, all week. And we've got thousands of Albertans here. So when
Yes.
we're walking around the Ponoka Stampede, we want to show you
Yeah.
their heart and their spirit. I'm so excited that later in the program, we're going to be at Beulah Alliance Church.
Yeah.
And I get to speak with you and Christina. This is long awaited for me.
Yes.
I have waited to have some time with Christina. And you guys are sharing a beautiful story that you have.
Thank you. I know I'm biased.
Yeah.
because she's my wife and I love her. But this story of how God brought us together, I believe is going to bring about so much hope to so many of you. So can't wait to share that with you.
Well, we can't wait. And there is so much to come in this program. But first, we've got to show you the Ponoka Stampede.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. That's a ball.
Oh, my goodness.
That is.
Can you even imagine doing this?
Nope.
Would you ever do it?
Nope.
You might do it once. No, never. Me neither.
I wake up and my neck and back hurts.
I just think that these riders are full of so much courage
They are.
and they're full of grit.
Yes.
Yeah.
The hours and hours and hours of training
That's so
that they
true.
must be doing.
We have the honor of speaking with the president of the Ponoka Stampede, Rick Wiersma. It's so good to have you with us today.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you're here.
We'd love for you to share what makes the Ponoka Stampede unique.
It's a lot of commitment by a lot of people, by a community, a wide community of the central Alberta that helps make us all happen, and a lot of vision by people through the years to keep making it bigger and better. And one of my old mentors used to say, "What are you going to do next year?" And we keep finding something new.
You certainly do.
Yeah, and you were even saying right before this that you were like, oh yeah, next year's going to be bigger and better.
Yeah, well, we're going to try. We keep trying.
we've loved our day here at Ponoka, and we've loved seeing all of the cowboys, the cowgirls, working so hard at these events, and we literally are just amazed by their bravery, their courage. And we can't let you go without asking you. No. We want to know, what is your favorite event?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, you put me on the spot.
We did.
I like the saddle bronc riding. I'd have to say that's probably
you like that one.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah. But I like it all.
Well, we have loved being here, and we want to try to make it back, and we want our viewers to come here to Ponoka next year to the Ponoka Stampede. Well, thanks so much for having us today here, Rick.
Oh, that's our pleasure. We're glad you came.
Well, we've got so much more for you today in this program, so stay with us.
Huntley on the Road is brought to you in part by Deeks Insurance, where family matters. Now offering exclusive home and auto discounts for members of Crossroads. To learn more, contact the Deeks team today. Call or visit deeksinsurance.ca.
Strong marriages are the bedrock of Canadian family life. Joining me now is Pastor Daniel Im and his wife Christina Im, founders of the In Between podcast. Welcome to 100 Huntley Street on the Road in Edmonton, Alberta, Daniel and Christina.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. We're so thrilled to be here.
Yeah. I'm so excited to be with you guys. And Christina, this is a highlight for me. About 1.5 years, 2 years in the making.
Yes, we've been talking about this for a long time, and finally...
this mysterious woman finally shows up.
You get to meet my better half, so...
Not better half.
Yes, no, trust me.
It's so good. I'm thinking of your podcast right now. This is exactly the honest, authentic kind of banter, and I love it. Well, you know, you guys have a beautiful story of how you met. It's connected to serving God and a beautiful missions trip you guys were on. Tell our viewers, you can go back and forth. I think we really want to hear this story.
Yeah, totally. So we were both in university. I was at UBC, Christina was at Carleton, and we met on a mission trip.
Exactly. So a little background before then is that leading up to this missions trip, I was asking people to financially support and prayerfully support. And 3 different couples actually came up to me and said, yes, we will financially support you. But more than that, we're going to prayerfully support you because we believe that we hear from God and the Holy Spirit that you're going to meet your future husband on this missions trip.
Separate couples. They weren't talking to each other. They didn't know. Yeah.
And it was kind of that message of like, okay, God, you have my attention, but this is pretty freaky.
Yeah. And then when we got to the mission trip, it's interesting because I got there and immediately I heard this laugh. And you'll hear it through this interview, right? Like Christina has a beautiful laugh. Yeah. And there are many different versions of the laugh. And I was like, who is that? And I saw her talking with her friends, and immediately I was like, who is that woman? So from the beginning, there's something about Christina, but it wasn't the same way for her.
No, I actually looked around there were 60 students there. I looked around and I was like, not attractive, not attractive. Sorry, not attractive in my opinion at that time.
Yeah, I didn't make the cut at the beginning.
Yeah. So I was like, well, this must be false. We're just going to live life and go on from there. Yeah. But as we got to know each other, I just really started to notice how he loved God so much and just the life of integrity and a faith that he wanted to live. And so that kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. Another instance was that my roommate at the time was asking me, like, why are you and Daniel not together? It was about 3 weeks into the missions trip. And I had a whole sorts of reasons. And she said, you know, I think you really need to prayerfully consider this because you are being selfish. The different reasons that I had. One reason was he was Asian. Another one, he was younger. Another one was that it was long distance. And so she was basically saying, Christina, pray about it because maybe you're putting blocks in the way that are not meant to be there. So that night I prayed and I said, God, if my heart is in the wrong place, could you change it? Just open my eyes to what you want. And that night I had a dream that I was supposed to marry him.
Yeah. My face just dropped. I was like, so God answers in a dream.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was, the dream specifically was that a gentleman who I don't know, he represented every creature comfort of the world. And he had asked me to marry him. And I said yes, and we were kind of rejoicing. Then Daniel comes into the picture, and he asks me, will you marry me? And I burst out crying. Because I say, well, Daniel, I wanted to say yes to you because you represent following God wholeheartely. Doesn't mean we're going to have every comfort in the world, but we're going to follow God wholeheartedly. And that's the greatest adventure I want to be on. But I just said yes to this guy, so what am I going to do? And I remember waking up from that dream and just being flabbergasted. Like, what do we do now? But that morning when we saw each other at breakfast, like, I don't even know if you realize, I must have been blushing and just really nervous.
I already liked her at this point, but as you can tell, there's no way that I would be able to, I needed God's help, essentially. So he helped me.
I needed God's help.
Speaking through dreams and visions to Christina. And yeah, what is it now? 18 years married, 20 years since this has happened, 3 kids now, so.
It's incredible.
It is the greatest adventure we've ever been on.
It certainly is. And I love how much, Daniel, you really understood who Christina was right away. You were like, this is the one. And Christina, God's working through, and in different ways. Because sometimes we put our own expectations of what we think is the right fit for us. But God has a whole other vision for our lives. So
my prayer, and I know as humans, we all have different, like Christina, we have these different expectations of who we want to marry and who we're attracted to and all of that. And I remember there was this moment where I had this list and I was like, God, this doesn't matter. I would love if my future wife plays piano so that we could worship together and we can do, and I had all these things and I was like, in the end, God, it doesn't matter. What matters most is that I would marry someone who loves you as much as I love you. And that's what I started, and that was before I met Christina, and that's what I started praying. And in the end, when I met her, there was just this love that she had for God that was contagious.
And it's so incredible the way God brought you both together. It's very miraculous, but it comes out of those submitted hearts to God in the end, saying, okay, God, your will, not mine necessarily. And then this great adventure and this great love story has unfolded. Today, you're both leading in the area of marriage and family life with actually Family Life Canada. But you hit your bumps in the road too, even as a married couple.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this point, you had 2 young kids. There was a lot of turmoil going on in terms of calling and where, you had been serving in ministry, layers like that. Tell us about this breaking point, what led up to it, and what was happening in your marriage all those years ago.
Well, I think it's a lot even before that. And it's just our family of origin, looking at our parents, seeing how they managed conflict. And it was different. For my family, we would yell at each other and then just go silent. And for your family, you would just go silent. So we brought these 2 differing opinions and ways of handling conflict together. And I would just yell at him, and then he would kind of go silent and retreat. And it was just this cycle of I'm pursuing him by yelling at him, and he's withdrawing because he's feeling afraid, and he doesn't want to say something that's going to hurt me, and so he withdraws. And so it was just this cycle. And it lasted for about 7 years. That's the way we handled conflict, but we came to a breaking point where that way of handling conflict just wasn't working for us. And so I remember this even talking to my mom about, like, we are in such a place where we cannot make this important decision whether we should move away or stay where we are in terms of ministry. And she was like, well, I'm just going to pray for you because I feel as though this has gone on long enough. It was a year before we were able to really come together, submit our desires and our wills before God and make a choice together. But there were times where I was like, I don't think we're going to make it.
Yeah, because essentially what was happening is we were both convinced that the other wasn't hearing from God, right? I was convinced that God was leading us into this new ministry and to move. And I was praying, and I had all of these moments where I was like, no, God, you are leading us. And I believe I had heard from him, and I was praying for Christina that God would change her heart. And the same thing was going the other way.
Exactly. I was praying, God, show him he's wrong.
Yeah.
Show him that I'm right.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. And it was so hard, right? Because we were both convinced that we had both heard from God and the other hadn't. And it was so interesting because for a year this had gone on, and I remember the day I came home and you were asking others to pray for you. I was asking others to pray for me, and there's this moment where I remember coming home and I was like, you know what? If my marriage and our relationship is breaking down because we feel like maybe this is, God is calling us to move, or maybe I've heard from God, maybe I haven't, and I started doubting and all that. But would God really want our marriage to break down as a result of this thought of following him to a new place?
Yeah.
And I just remember surrendering all that I had heard from God, surrendering all of it and coming home and being like, Christina, you know what? It's not worth it. I feel like the enemy is gaining a foothold in our lives, in our marriage, dividing, conquering like he does best. And I just said, let's stay. And in the exact same moment,
I had that the Holy Spirit was working in my heart. Like, this is not worth it.
Yeah.
This trying to stay, trying to go, trying to convince each other. Your relationship is really being fractured by this. So just lay it all down. Trust me in this decision. Lay down your will, lay down your expectations, and trust me. And so I was like, I don't know what that means, God, and I remember getting down on my knees and saying, okay, God, I trust you. And literally, half an hour later, he comes in the door.
Right, what God's doing in our hearts. And what we've really learned from that, because in the end, we ended up staying for another year, and then God opened up these doors for us to move to Nashville, live there for 5 years. That's where we started the podcast. That actually then ended up moving things toward us then coming back 5 years later and all of that. But what we learned through that about discernment is that sometimes the result of what you are praying for is not really the point, right? God is doing a deeper work in and through just coming to him, in the asking, in the waiting. And sometimes that's what God is actually more concerned about, the shaping of his children. But we often think that the in-between, right, is not really the point. It's the end. We got to go. But I really believe that he cares more about the in-between than the end.
It's so powerful, and such an incredible story of both of you having this experience where your hearts are softened to God. And he's shaping you. He's molding you to be more like Jesus. How can I serve you? That's kind of what you're asking each other in those moments. The In-Between podcast, it's part of the inspiration behind it was because in that season of your life, there weren't resources like that for you, especially free resources.
Completely.
Some of the issues that the In-Between podcast deals with for families and for marriages, what would those issues be today? What do you think the prevalent focus you have is?
I love how you were talking about the heart of that, because that really what it is. When we were married for 7 years, we didn't have a lot of money. People were saying go to counseling. We would have loved to go to counseling, but it was just at $200 a pop sometimes. It was just a little bit out of our reach. And so looking for those free resources, there weren't any. So that was our heart behind it, is just really how can we hear the pain of what people are going through, whether it's parenting, marriage. A lot of it deals with conflict, with social media, pornography, even in the home, whether it's through the kids or through the relationship with the spouses. How are things of those pain points? How can we give people these resources? It's not gonna, you listen to a podcast. We would love it if that was the thing that changes people's lives. It's not. It's God, but it's a tool to be able to even have a common ground and common language between parents, between a spouse. Like, hey, I listened to this podcast about disciplining children, or about how can we connect with children and with our kids. And then can you listen to this? And maybe we can come together and talk about it and have this level of understanding between us.
So good, and I love that you guys have personality testing on the website, where your podcast is housed. You have interviews, you have printouts and resources. I mean, you are saying to people, I'm going to equip you to have a healthy and thriving marriage connected to God, and you've lived that out. For our viewers watching right now, one of the main calls we get into our prayer center for Crossroads has to do with marriages. I mean, it's it's the highest ratio of calls almost, and it's marriages for the person calling in, their grandkids, their children. For the person watching right now who's in a season of pain and difficulty in their marriage, what would you say to them as a word of encouragement to help them along on that journey?
Yeah. My preaching coach had gone to Israel, and he found a rabbi, and he asked this rabbi this question about how often in our lives or how much time do we spend in Egypt, in the wilderness, and then in the promised land. And I remember him telling me this story where the rabbi looks at him and he's like, "Oh, you Westerners, all you care about is being and living in the promised land where everything is good and there's milk and honey and there's no conflict and all of that." But he's like, in reality, our lives, 10 to 15% of our lives are lived in Egypt, 10 to 15% of our lives are lived in the promised land, and 70 to 80% is in the wilderness. And I share that because sometimes we have this ideal that marriage, you're going to get married and you're going to be perfect and everything's going to be awesome. Or we strive for this state of no conflict. Or because based on, like you were saying, our childhood, and there's a sense of, okay, isn't everything going well when there's no conflict? But there's, through research, what's the percentage of conflict that's
perpetual?
That's perpetual, yeah.
69%.
Yeah.
Wow. In any marriage.
In any marriage, yeah. So that means that if you're thinking about your conflict, that 69% of it, you're not going to necessarily have an answer that you are like, okay, this is the way we need to do it, because there's all these different things of your characteristics, your personalities that come into it. So instead of looking at it like we were talking about, I'm right, you're wrong. No, I'm right, you're wrong. How can you come together and actually use conflict and learn the ability to have conflict in a way that you understand when your spouse is hurting, I stop and I listen.
So good. So much encouragement in this conversation for marriages and families across the nation. Daniel, Christina, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm so thrilled that I can tune into the In Between podcast, and I can't say enough about it and the ministry that's happening here at Beulah and through how you're caring for married couples across the country.
Thank you. We were honored to be together with you.
Yes.
Before we can pray for a nation, we need to experience Jesus ourselves. John Eldredge reminds us that when we hear from Jesus personally, it changes how we see the world and how we pray for it. If we want to see Canada change through revival, it begins with Canadians encountering Jesus, personally, deeply, really.
The way back to God is simpler than you know. It is the simple prayer of practicing the presence of God, of loving Him and letting Him love you.
This month, as our thanks for your ministry support of Crossroads and 100 Huntley Street, we're excited to offer the book Experience Jesus, Really, Finding Refuge, Strength, and Wonder Through Everyday Encounters with God by best-selling author John Eldredge. With a gift of $40 or more, or when you become a new monthly partner, request your copy. Call 1-800-265-3100 or visit crossroads.ca/Jesus.
Join us all this week for 100 Huntley Street,
On the road in Alberta,
featuring stories of God at work.
and fun adventures in Western Canada.
You don't want to miss a moment.
I know I'm biased, but I think my kids are gifted in so many different ways, and I don't have a problem telling them so. Whether it's my eldest daughter's incredible and insatiable ability to learn, my middle daughter's ability to see and empathize that drives her thirst for justice, or my son's imagination and creativity that makes him a joy to be around. When I tell them how gifted they are, it's interesting how differently each of them will respond. One might roll their eyes and say, "Oh, whatever, Dad, you have to say stuff like that." One might simply try to change the topic, and then one might beam with gratitude, take it all in and be like, "Come on, Dad, keep it coming." Well, in the same way, God our Father doesn't have any problem telling us how gifted we are. In Ephesians 4, we read, starting in verse 7, "Now grace was given to each one of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. For it says, when He ascended on high, He took the captives captive, He gave gifts to people." And then in verse 11, He himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers. And then in James 1:17, we read, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. God is the ultimate gift giver, and he has given each of us gifts and the grace to use the gifts he has given us. Now, which gifts we have and the measure in which we have them doesn't really have anything to do with us or what we've done. When you think about it, there's really no cosmic gift vending machine where we can choose to get A5, the ability to care deeply for others, or D6, the ability to teach in a way that people connect and understand, or E9, the ability to start things or shape culture, or how about this one, F10, good looks and a charming smile. Instead, we receive our gifts based on what Christ gives us, because he's the gift giver. It's up to him, not us. So what's your response to all this? To the fact that you're gifted because Christ, our gift giver, has given you his gifts? Is it, finally, Daniel, you noticed, yes, I am gifted. Look at what I can do. Aren't I awesome? Right? Is your response to hoard these gifts to yourself? Or is it more of a, shucks, I'm not sure. I just don't know if I'm really gifted compared to, is your response to hide your gifts and downplay them, to live in a sort of constant comparison? Or is it gratitude? Thank you, Jesus. I'm yours. May I use these gifts to honor you, to point people to you, and to build up your body.
Wow, Daniel, talking with you and Christina was so encouraging. And what really struck me was how much God moves supernaturally in the early stages of your relationship to bring you together.
Yeah.
It was pretty miraculous, like miracle after miracle, even the dream Christina had. And God was clearly working in your heart because you were head over heels right from the get-go.
Well, I think it just goes to show you how much of marriage is really a team, right? And the teamwork that you need, the partnership, to having a God-glorifying marriage.
That's right. And, today you are both serving together at Beulah Alliance Church in Edmonton. You're the lead pastor, but that's a family commitment. So I see that, God was just designing that relationship between you two as you lead in unity together.
Oh, thank you.
And teamwork's everything.
Yeah,
you're right.
It is.
In every part of life.
It really is. And today as we were watching the rodeo, oftentimes we think about the main events. But the people behind the scenes who are actually in they were in there with them, the cowboys who were there in case something went wrong. Or to stop the steers, or to actually chase a runaway bull. And how many of them it took to rope that bull in?
Took 5.
Yeah, and they couldn't have done it without teamwork.
That teamwork changed everything. And, behind the lens right now, there's a big team, actually. And we want to say thank you to our team already here on the ground in Alberta. There's a whole week ahead.
Yeah.
But they're working hard, and teamwork is everything.
Yeah, and you know what's cool?
Yeah?
Because we've now officially experienced a rodeo, we can now say that this ain't our first rodeo. This ain't our first stampede, and this ain't our first rodeo.
That's right, and we have so much more this week. Tomorrow we go to Edmonton.
Yes.
And we're so thrilled. We're going to see your hometown.
Yeah, can't wait to see you.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a supporter-funded nonprofit organization and member of the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities. Thanks to faithful people like you, we are able to continue producing 100 Huntley Street. You can write to Crossroads, P.O. Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R4M2, or visit crossroads.ca to learn more about our programs.